Our next presenter is Alec Osthoff, whose parents ran a dog sled kennel until he was 12. Animals played a big role in young Alec's life. He showed horses competitively for years, and because he was at one point a top 10 horse showman in the US for under 18, he got the opportunity to ride horses with William Shatner, who is also apparently a big horseman. Who knew? But that sounds very cool. Alec, while not being in an acoustic Black Sabbath cover band, nonetheless was a singer in a metal band for 5 years. And that pretty much fills up the 25 years of this talented man's life. Alec loves telling stories because he comes out of a mining community where the town shapes, reflects on, and transmits its history through the storytelling tradition, so he knows how important stories are. When I asked Alec what he's most afraid of in the world, he said it was running out of the time and energy necessary to do creative work. Well, Alec, that's not going to happen tonight. We got nothing but time, so let's get you up here and give you a big welcome for your presentation, The Better Days of My Life. Alec Osthoff.
Awesome. If I thank everybody that I'm supposed to thank, I'll never read. So, thank you. And I'm ready whenever you all are in the back. The better part of my life has been spent racing dogs. I forget who said that originally, because just about everybody says it now, with racing slipped in there to sound like raising, and the intentional ambiguity between better meaning best or longest, because if you asked most of those mushers straight on, they'd have a hard time honestly saying whether or not it was all worth it. I was born into the second most successful sprint kennel in history, a house of 60-some scrappy pro athletes, most of them canine with a few hominin in the mix. The dogs were Alaskan Huskies, different from their Siberian cousins with their supermodel faces and hip dysplasia. Alaskans are a product of the gold rush. They're Siberian freight pullers bred with every short-haired coyote, greyhound, and timber wolf on the frontier, bred to pull equipment in and out of mining areas, haul the injured, and bring care for the sick. Like many one-time life or death activities, mushing became a sport. This isn't the Iditarod I'm talking about. I'm talking 4 to 10 mile races at over twice the speed, averaging just over 20 miles an hour through hairpin backwoods trails, your sled skidding out into trees or flipping all together, and a team of dogs that is not interested in waiting for you if you fall, that will finish the race themselves. This is the home I was born into, a home that December through March was a dog truck as we traveled across the northern US and Canada, stopping every weekend in a new town where a new team had the home field advantage, taking a crack at a major kennel. So picture this for a moment. Driving from British Columbia to Toronto to Banff to New York, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Vail, Winnipeg, Fairbanks, Toronto, Syracuse, Wisconsin, Quebec, Minnesota, Montreal, Kenmore. A new town every weekend, stopping at snowmobile trails to work the dogs en route, eating fast food while driving, riding those switchbacks of the Alaskan highway on no sleep because you've got to hit Syracuse by Thursday night, always on the move, only stopping to let the dogs out for a minute before putting another 100 miles down. And now I want you to picture something else. It's summertime, and the 60 world-class athletes living behind your house are bored. They can't run because if it's warmer than 35, they risk getting heat stressed, and it's in the 80s and 90s for 3 months without pause. You bring them water, sometimes 3 times a day, and the clever dogs push their dishes to the center of their circles, run a quick pass with their chain to flip you at the knee, and spill that 10-gallon bucket right down on top of you. Some dogs do this to show power over you, or at least to make you acknowledge that while you may be in control, you're not the smart one here. But then others are just doing it to show you they've got a sense of humor, and it's hard to argue with them there. Hundreds of hours spent getting the dogs used to humans, and there you are, on your back in the mud, plastic bucket on top of you, and that dog howling for the first time all day like they're laughing or saying, "Look, I get it. I know how to be human better than you do." And your leaders are the most likely to feel this way. These dogs are smart enough that the most you can hope for from them is grudging respect. But they are not going to grovel like some house pet. We had a 10-dog leader named Midas, and if Midas decided the race had gone on too long, she laid down in the trail, stopped the whole sled. She wouldn't get back up again unless you moved her into the basket and let the other dogs finish the race. That's her in the front, Timber Gray on the left. But she knew she could get away with this every now and again, that she wouldn't be cut from the team, because even with her funny run and the occasional antics, there wasn't a dog fast or smart enough to replace her. Because when Midas wanted to, she would get you there, force the whole team to match her pace as she cranked out the last mile. And when she didn't want to, she knew you'd carry her, because she knew that you wanted it more than she did. The dogs that ran together lived together, positioned next to each other in the yard, side-by-side boxes in the truck. They were always there for each other, often brought up from the same litter, raised their whole lives to run as a team and a family. And they were our family too. Before I started school, I knew the names of far more dogs than people. I knew how much they ate, whether or not they could be trusted, if they liked me or not. I knew how to read a dog before I learned how to read a book. I rode a sled before a bike, managed a harness while still in Velcro shoes. I could tell the difference between a wolf howl and a dog cry. I learned that snowshoeing never has been and never will be fun, that a dog will always know you are scared before you do, and I learned how to tell all 9 dogs in the white litter apart. I learned you can make a living doing whatever you pleased. I learned kindness and commitment for and from those dogs. And above it all were my parents, those rare individuals that could truly say they were the best in the world at what they chose to do. Not out of any natural-born talent, though they had plenty of that, but they were able to do it because they were willing to make the sacrifices that all the mushers thought they were making. They were willing to commit to decades of failed attempts to get themselves to the point that they could eke out a meager living doing what they loved. They put everything they had into raising those dogs. No one would challenge that, though plenty begrudged him for it. I remember the time a competitor shoved my father against his dog truck over winnings he thought were unrightfully earned. And that was just the first time I saw my mother come at someone with a hatchet. Then there was the time a neighboring musher tried to run the 10-dog team down with his truck during practice. My dad dropped anchor and tried to group the team up, sort of condense them in. My mom, for her part, well, she ran out in front, arms outstretched like she was going to catch the truck before it hit. Well, he slammed at the brakes at the last second, slipped out on the ice, and skid sideways past them all. Maybe he changed his mind, maybe he never intended to kill anyone just to scare them, and maybe he just figured, even with his truck, he couldn't take them all together. They have died for their teams, on several occasions volunteered, just for that speed and the tenacity of the dogs giving you everything they had, that cold wind blowing down the mountains of another frontier town as they clung to their sleds for dear life, a wind so cold that it would freeze the tears in your eyes. Thank you.